Hello, everyone. This is the CircuitPython weekly meeting for June 16th, 2025. This is the time of the week where we get together to talk about all things CircuitPython. My name is Tim, and I am sponsored by Adafruit to work on CircuitPython. CircuitPython is a version of Python that's designed to run on tiny computers called microcontrollers. The development of CircuitPython is primarily sponsored by Adafruit, and if you would like to support them and CircuitPython, consider purchasing hardware from their store at adafruit.com. This meeting gets hosted on the Adafruit Discord server. You can join that at any time by going to adafru.it/discord. We hold the meeting in the CircuitPython dev text channel and the CircuitPython voice channel. The meeting occurs weekly, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And if you ever want to get updates about the meeting and when it's going to occur, including any changes to the day or time, you can ask to be added to the CircuitPythonistas role on Discord. We ping that role anytime that we are going to make changes. So if we're going to bump it to the Tuesday for a holiday, or if we are going to change the schedule, then that role will get notifications. There is a notes document that's linked up in the pinned messages, so feel free to open that up. It's a shared Google Doc. You can add your hug reports and status updates to that. Those are for our 2 round robin sections, which we will get to here in a bit. Let's see. Yeah, as always, feel free to come and go as needed. If you are unable to make it, or if you have conflicts in your schedule and need to just stop by for a moment, even if that means like rearranging the order, if you need to go first or last or anything like that, let us know. We can work with your schedule. The meeting, it varies in length. It tends to run 30 to 60 minutes based on how many people are around for the round robin sections. And we know that it's on a work day, so if you have other stuff going on, but you would like to pop in and have some scheduling concerns, just pop into the Discord, let us know, and we can work with you on that. All right, so we will get to the next part, which will be community news, once I get there and take a timestamp. All right, this is community news. This is a look at all things CircuitPython and Python on hardware in the community, a chosen set of items from the Python on Microcontrollers newsletter, which gets sent out each Monday, typically. And I'll tell you a bit more about the newsletter after we talk about a few of this week's items. A couple items that caught my eye this week. We had Python 3.13.5 was released. Python 3.13.5 is the 5th maintenance release of Python 3.13. It fixes several issues with Python 3.13.4, and this is a feature freeze now for upcoming 3.14. There are links here to the Python blog and over to Real Python if you would like to read more about that. Next up, we have 2025 Open Hardware Summit videos are now available. The talk videos from the 2025 Open Hardware Summit are now available on YouTube. Check out the playlist to learn what your colleagues are looking at in the open hardware space. And there is a link here to the YouTube playlist where you can view those videos. Next up, and the last of our news items this week, is a vending machine for birds. This is one of the projects that was featured in this week's newsletter. It is a simple, inexpensive bird feeder that dispenses peanuts in exchange for dropping stuff into a hole using a Raspberry Pi and Python. I thought this one was pretty interesting. I've heard about people doing this where they sort of train the local wild birds to bring like trash, bottle caps and cigarette butts and things like this to a little trash drop off, and they reward them with bird seed, or in this case peanuts. So I thought that was a pretty cool project and a neat use of Python on the Raspberry Pi. There is a link here to Hackaday.io if you want to learn more about that project, including checking out some of the cool up-close pictures of the birds that visited, which I thought was also really cool. And that is it for the items from the newsletter. Now I'll tell you a bit more about the newsletter generally. All these items and many more did come from the Python on Microcontrollers weekly newsletter, which is a CircuitPython community-run newsletter that gets emailed every Monday. The complete archives of that newsletter are available on adafruitdaily.com, and it highlights the latest in Python and hardware-related news from around the web, including CircuitPython, Python, and MicroPython developments. If you would like to contribute your own news or projects, you can edit next week's draft on GitHub by submitting a pull request with the changes. If you are not on GitHub or would prefer not to submit things that way, you can also just email to cpnews@adafruit.com, or you can tag a post with hashtag CircuitPython on Mastodon, Blue Sky, or other social media websites. Next up, we have the state of CircuitPython, the libraries, and Blinka. Let me catch up here in my other document. So this section is a quantitative overview of the entire project. It gives us a chance to look at the health of the project separate from our status updates. We'll talk about the project overall, and then we'll separately discuss the core, the libraries, and Blinka. So I will give you the stats for the overall across the whole project. Across all CircuitPython repos for the past 7 days, we had 23 pull requests merged by 14 different authors. And I did not go through here and highlight names ahead of time, so I'll do this as I read them off. But the names that are here that are newer or less familiar to my eye, there's actually quite a few of them this week. So we've got James Bowman, Crack XT, Sola85, Simon, SamDev7, Bald Engineer, and Jan Volok. Jan Volok. I may have, apologies if I mispronounce any of those, but yeah, those are names that I do not recognize as being in these lists from week to week. So these might be newer contributors or less frequent contributors, or just folks who happen to have a name that has slipped by my recognition on GitHub. So thank you to those folks. Thank you to all of our more frequent contributors, or the names that I do see in these lists from week to week more typically. We had 6 reviewers this week, thanks to Liz, Bob, ADCC, Dan, Lady Ada, Maker Melissa, and myself. We had 7 issues that were closed by 4 people, and 5 new issues opened up by 5 people. And with that, I will turn it over to Dan, if you're available, to tell us about the stats for the core this week.
All right, sure, thanks. So in the past week, there were 13 pull requests merged in the core by 11 authors. And the new ones that I recognize are ones that mostly match what Tim already highlighted. And there were 3 reviewers of those 13 pull requests. We've now got 23 open pull requests about. And in the past week, there were 4 issues closed by 2 people and 5 opened by 5 people. We currently have 775 open issues. That will never go to 0, but that's all right. We group those issues into milestones depending on kind of their priority or what version they're applicable to. So we've got 24 issues open for the 10.00 release, which is upcoming, 1 for 10.0x, 42 that can be deferred until after, that are 10xx, which can be deferred until after 10.00, 7 for 11.00, and various other categories. And there were 4 issues that were not assigned a milestone, but I've now triaged those and there are none, which is kind of I always do that on Monday when I see non-zero, no milestone issues. And that is it for the core.
All right, thank you, Dan. Next up, I will tell you about the CircuitPython libraries. This covers the libraries, which are split into sort of 2 main groups, so to speak. We have the Adafruit library bundle, which currently has 364 libraries in it. We have the community library bundle, which is made by third parties, members of the communities, individuals. There are 165 libraries in the community bundle right now, so that gives us a total of 529 libraries right now that support CircuitPython across both of those bundles. In the past 7 days, we had 8 pull requests merged to the Adafruit bundle libraries by 2 different authors, thanks to Liz and Maker Melissa. We had 4 reviewers, thanks to Liz, Maker Melissa again, Lady Ada, and myself. Of the merged pull requests, they were basically all brand new this week at 1 day old. And then that leaves us at the end of the week with 45 pull requests remaining open. The oldest one is a draft that's out there at 1,033 days. The newest one is 2 days old right now. We had only one issue closed by one person, no new issues opened up by anyone, and that leaves us right now with 718 open issues across all of the Adafruit libraries. And there are 3 of those right now that are labeled as good first issues, which you can find if you would like listed out over at circuitpython.org/contributing. That is the website where you should go if you are interested in getting involved with CircuitPython. The place where we tend to point folks who are just getting involved first is reviewing PRs. So on that page, circuitpython.org/contributing, you'll see a list of open PRs. Those are links over to GitHub that have proposed changes that have been submitted for the various libraries. And what we are looking for folks to do is actually go through and review that. Take a look at the change. You can review the code for syntax, spelling, logic, anything else. If you do have the hardware that library is for, you can go ahead and try running the updated code on the hardware, test it out, see how it works, and then leave a comment on GitHub letting us know what you found. When you looked over the code, did you find anything that maybe should be done differently, or does it all look good to you? If you did have hardware and you're able to test it out, how did that go? Just leave a comment on GitHub letting us know that sort of thing. If you get comfortable with the process and would like to get leveled up to leave official reviews on GitHub, we can work with you to do that. And then if you would like to start getting your hands dirty writing and submitting some of your own code, you can also do that on the same website, circuitpython.org/contributing. If you click on the top of the page over to the issues page, you'll see another big list of links over to GitHub, but these ones represent issues. There is no proposed change yet, so they're waiting for a person just like you to come along who's interested in submitting that proposed change to fix whatever the issue it is. Maybe it's resolving a bug or adding a new feature or a new example or something like that. We have a guide to contributing to CircuitPython using Git and GitHub, and we also have folks who are around throughout the week who are more than happy to help you get spun up. So if you would like to contribute, whether that is reviewing or submitting your own PRs and you're having trouble with Git or pre-commit or any other part of the process, just come say hi on Discord. Let us know what you're up to, what kind of trouble you're having, and we would be happy to help you out. The library updates in the last 7 days are listed here, the INA 23X and 228, and then Portalbase and Qualia libraries. And then next up, I will take another timestamp and tell you about Blinka. So Adafruit Blinka is the compatibility layer. This allows you to run code that looks like CircuitPython code, but lets you run it on a Raspberry Pi or other single board computer. And across all of the Blinka repositories this week, we had 2 different authors. So thanks to Jan Volok and Maker Melissa, 2 reviewers, myself and Maker Melissa. And there are 13 pull requests that remain open across all of those Blinka libraries. So I know Melissa's been back a bit and working on those. So thanks to her for continuing to knock those out. Over the past 7 days in Blinka land, there were 2 issues closed by one person. No new issues opened up. There are currently 152 issues, and right now we have support for 162 different devices with the Blinka compatibility layer. All right, next up, I will take the next timestamp and we will get started with Hug Reports. As a reminder, Hug Reports is a chance to highlight folks in the community and beyond for doing awesome things. I'll start, then we'll go down the list of Hug Reports alphabetically or as they appear here in the doc. If you're text only or missing the meeting, then I will read the notes for you. Otherwise, I'll call on you and you can take a moment to tell us what you've got. So I'll get us started, and I have one which I will add real quick, Hug Report to Dan for putting links to the newsletter items. I appreciate that, and a group hug to everyone in the community. And that's what I've got. So next up, I will turn it over to Dan.
All right, thank you, Tim. Okay, I have one Hug Report. Thanks to ADCC Bob, who reviewed my merge of MicroPython v1.24.1 into CircuitPython. And did it quickly, and there's like hundreds of files changed, so it was a lot of work. Thank you very much. And that's it for me for Hug Reports.
All right, thanks, Stan. And it is a light week, so that is it for Hug Reports as well. Next up, I will tell you about status updates. So status updates is our next round robin section. This is our time of the week where we can tell folks what we're up to individually. So I'll start, then we'll go through the list. Same way as we did Hug Reports. When I call on you, take a minute to tell us what you've been up to since the last week or what you think you'll be working on until the next week's meeting. If a discussion becomes too long, we can always move that to in the weeds. So I will kick us off again. For the past week or so, I worked on a startup screens guide. So this covers the Fruit Jam startup screen as well as some other classic ones. And I have submitted that guide and then went through and did a couple of changes based on feedback during the review process. I wrote examples for plotting Adafruit I/O data on a graph using display I/O. I started that work on the PyPortal, but it is ultimately destined to run on the Fruit Jam with the new revision that has a ESP coprocessor to access the internet. And as part of that process, I worked on an enhancement for the Sparkline class, which is what does the line graph that I'm using, to allow you to add multiple data values with one function call. Right now, in the existing one, you have to add data one at a time, but I thought it would be nice to be able to add a list, so I have a change for that I will submit as PR. I fixed a bunch of examples in the Adafruit I/O repo. These were examples made for ESP32 SPI devices, and they were trying to access information about the network, like the SSID, using old APIs. So those are updated now, so they no longer raise exceptions. I also updated some code for the Metro 2350 Learn Guide. The SD card examples were not working under 10.x because of the auto mounting that occurs now in the core. So I updated those examples to have try except blocks and to work under both 9x and 10x. And then the last thing I have is I finished up a guide page for the ESP32S2, which details how to use deep sleep and then wake up to read data from a sensor and then post it to Adafruit I/O and then go back to sleep. So it kind of doesn't take very much power and takes readings from a sensor every 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever you set it to, and sends it to Adafruit I/O and then goes back to sleep. And that's what I have been up to. Next up, I will pass it over to Dan.
Okay, so this past week, as I mentioned, I finished the MicroPython version 1.24.1 merge into CircuitPython, which ADCC reviewed and merged. And then the next merge to do is version 1.25 for MicroPython, which is the latest one that's actually been released. And hopefully it won't take too much time either. It's tedious, but it's been getting easier. We're putting in like annotations, for instance, in the CircuitPython code to say like, hey, we changed this code, so we can tell immediately that this is a change that we made already and we want to keep, for instance. Another thing that I did was on expressive boards that are 4 megabytes flash and do not have UF2. So we're talking about plain ESP32 and ESP32 C3, C6, H2. There might be a C5 in there too, I'm not sure. What I did is there were originally two firmware partitions. One for CircuitPython and one of the same size that was meant so that you could update CircuitPython over the air. However, that it had to be the same size as the original one, and that meant that we were bumping into capacity problems. So several versions ago, minor versions ago, in around 9.1, we turned off the OTA, the over-the-air updating capability anyway. And so I've now merged the two identical firmware partitions into one, so we now have twice as much firmware space on these non-UF2 boards. And we're going to do the same thing for the ESP32 S2 and S3 UF2 capable boards with 4 megabytes, but that's more work. For the non-UF2 case, we don't have to do anything. It's upward compatible. And backward compatible too, kind of, because I was careful not to move where the CircuitPython user file system is. So you can update and not mess up that. But when we get to ESP32 and S3, we have to update the partition table, which the easiest way to do that is to update the bootloader. And so we've tested that on Feather ESP32 S3, and there's a page in that guide which says how to update things, and we'll eventually do it for all the boards before 10.00 is released. And since I did this MicroPython merge, and there's a bunch of other interesting stuff, I will probably do a alpha.7 release today or tonight or by tomorrow, including a bunch of stuff to make it easier for people to test the latest stuff. And that's it for me.
All right, thanks, Dan. And that is it for status updates. The next section would be In the Weeds, where we have a chance for some more longer form discussion, but we do not have any In the Weeds topics this week, so we will skip on by that and head towards the wrap up instead. But I will need to scroll a little bit here. All right, so yes, this has been the CircuitPython weekly meeting for June 16th, 2025. Thanks to everyone who participated. If you would like to help support Adafruit and CircuitPython and those of us that work on CircuitPython, consider purchasing hardware from the Adafruit shop at adafruit.com. The video of the meeting will get released on YouTube at youtube.com/Adafruit, and the podcast will be made available on major podcast services. It will also be featured in the Python for Microcontrollers newsletter, which you can visit adafruitdaily.com in order to subscribe to that. The next meeting will be at the usual day and time next week on Monday, the 23rd. And then I think perhaps we'll do the 30th as well. But for July and August, it's looking like we might do bi-weekly. So stay tuned to that. We will perhaps ping, I think, the CircuitPython roles once we get the calendars and everything updated. But just be aware, we're looking at for July and August to do every other week for meetings instead of every week, since we've got so few people around during the summer months. So keep an eye out for that. But again, next week, normal day, normal time. That is the 23rd of June on Monday next week. As always, the meeting's held on the Adafruit Discord, which you can join at adafru.it/discord. And if you would like to get notified about any changes, including the ones I just spoke about, you can ask to be added to the CircuitPythonistas role on Discord. So that is it for this week. Thanks to everyone, and we will see you all next time.